Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I appreciate your time with this amendment. And I appreciate your time with it because I heard Dr. Oliverson say that his bill does not penalize parents. Simply because you don't penalize parents as criminals, or simply because you don't criminalize parents with civil liability, doesn't mean that you're not going to penalize these parents. If you pass this bill as is, you're going to crush these parents. You are going to send parents who are fifth-generation Texans with businesses, with communities, and you are going to tell them that they have the impossible decision between choosing the state and the community that they love and the child that needs their love and support. I have heard so many of you. You are Republican, I am a Democrat, but we can talk about our differences. We can talk about the people that we know, and we can talk behind closed doors about the things that we agree on. I'm going to tell you all that the amendment that I'm offering is an amendment that I got from talking with my Republican colleagues. And I am going to promise you that if we could take this vote without a red and green, without an a D and an R next to our names, that I have no doubt that this amendment would pass. And so I'm going to ask each one of you to find the courage to publicly tell the people that are sitting in this room that they are getting misinformation for political reasons. There are people that I see on Twitter that say that they are worried about gender mutilation. We agree with you. We agree with abortion and say, fine, no surgeries under the age of 18 if that's what you agree with. I don't agree when you say mutilation. I think that's the wrong term. I think that's the wrong concept, and I think it is very purposeful to place in you fear. And I bet it places within you fear because you may not know anybody who has actually been through this experience. Some of you filled in this room may not know anyone who has actually transitioned. You may not know anyone who has struggled with identifying who they are and asking for medical help. So I'm going to let you know that the amendment that I'm offering does nothing to change the status of surgery. The amendment that I'm offering, and I would ask each of you, if you will, please honor me with reading it and making a decision about what it says. It says that this amendment only addresses the issue of prescription. We're only talking about whether or not you can prescribe hormone treatment. And so why are we talking about hormone therapy? Because there are times when kids in puberty need hormone therapy. You heard Dr. Oliverson, when questioned by Representative Julie Johnson, that the bill does not ban hormone therapy for other kids. For example, take a mother who has a son who is projected to be 5'2". Think about the men here in this room. If your parents had known, hey, you've got a hormonal imbalance and you're projected to be 5'2", would you have wanted your parents to say, you know what? Life might be harder for my son if my son is 5'2", and I could help my son take medication that could get my son a little more growth. Might make life easier for my son if my son were taller and I could provide medical intervention at puberty, because that's the moment you can make the difference. Now imagine a mother who has a child who has severe gender dysphoria. A child that they did not expect, a child that they did not know had gender dysphoria, and a child that from the moment they were raising that child, They were treating that child with the gender that they were born with. They were dressing them in their clothes, and that was the gender of the child that they wanted. They never wanted to have a transgender child. But at some point, that child expressed who they were authentically to a point that it was damaging to that child not to be who they knew they were. That mother will not be able in puberty to prescribe the hormones that will keep that child from growing a beard. Here's the kicker. Same mother. Twins. That mother can address the hormone imbalance of height for that one twin and happily remain in the state with their family and friends and their business. But that mother cannot make the same decision for their other child. That family lives in my community. And that is just one example of the Texans, the actual Texans, that will be impacted by this law. So how do you address both? How do you address the needs of the people that believe sincerely, and I believe they believe it sincerely, that they want to address this issue to protect children with the same families that know that they equally need to protect and love their children by providing these medical treatments? I believe wholeheartedly this amendment does it, because this amendment, based on many conversations that I have had with many Republican members, says that if you have two independent medical professionals that have been trained in this particular work specifically, that you have the relevant training in diagnosis and treatment of gender dysphoria in children, and you have two mental health professionals or adolescent medicine specialists with relevant training in the diagnosis and treatment of dysphoria, gender dysphoria in children, then you go on to the next step. That's 2 doctors and 2 independent medical professionals. That's 4 medical professionals on top of the child's pediatrician. That's 5 medical professionals. That's also a distinction for those of you who are on the committees or heard the testimony of those detransitioners who, with all due respect, are being flown in around the nation on a political argument and are not Texas issues. And they all said that they had their treatment after the age of 18, and none of them complained about a Texas doctor. When I drilled down on the stories of some of those kids, including one, Karina, who I appreciate her presence. And I appreciate the fact that she is around my age. And that it was around 30 years ago that she did not have the support of her family. And she wanted to be with a man. And she believed, they believed, that they needed to be a woman to be with a man. I want you to think about what was going on 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it wasn't okay to be gay. And it was the rhetoric around not being gay that made that person think that they could never have a life as a happy gay individual. And that the only way they could find love is to change their gender. How much of that is on us as society? Of having a conversation 30 years ago and politically around the issue of DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, that gay marriage would somehow hurt traditional marriage. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that that was done, that we now know for political reasons. Many of the people that were involved in that later came out and said, I'm sorry. I was part of that. It was to drum up political issues, and it wasn't true. This is today's DOMA. And I promise you at some point, you will not want to say that you did not tell your constituents here the truth.
Mr. Speaker.